Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really interesting look at the global equine healthcare market. We've got some great analysis here, shedding light on horse health worldwide, where it is now and where it seems to be going.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to connect those dots, understand the big forces shaping how we care for horses, across the planet. We'll look at the numbers, sure, but also the trends driving things.
And the scale, right off the bat, is pretty eye-opening. For 2025, the global market is estimated at what? USD 362.5 million. That's quite an investment in keeping horses healthy.
It is, yeah. But what's maybe even more interesting is where it's headed. By 2033, it's expected to nearly double. We're talking USD 642.15 million.
Wow, nearly double. That's
Yeah,
a huge leap. And it works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 8.5% between 2025 and 2033. That kind of growth really signals something significant happening.
it really does. And, as we dig deeper, you'll see this growth isn't uniform. There are some pretty stark regional differences, different speeds of expansion. It tells a story about priorities and challenges in different places.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture again, just to be clear. Global market, USD 300 to 562.5 million in 2025, climbing towards USD 600 842.15 million by 2033. And that's fueled by an 8.5% annual growth rate.
That's right. And just for context, the analysis we're using has 2024 as its base year. It looks back at data from 2021 to 2024, estimates for 2025, and then forecasts out to 2033. So it gives us a pretty solid time frame, past and future.
Right. Now let's zoom in a bit because I know the equine healthcare scene can look very different depending on where you are in the world.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off with North America. This region holds the biggest piece of the pie right now, over 40% of the global market.
Over 40%. Okay, so what does that mean in dollar terms?
For 2025, the North American market is pegged at about USD 13-year 18.1 million, and it's expected to keep growing pretty steadily at a CGR of 7.0% through to 2033.
And within North America, I'm guessing the US is the main driver.
Oh, definitely. The U.S. market alone is looking at USD 1,040.00 million in 2025. Its CGR is slightly lower, 6.8%, but its size is just dominant. It really comes down to the sheer number of horse owners investing more in healthcare, treatments, preventative stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about Canada?
Canada's market is significant too, estimated at USD 158.18 million for 2025. And it's actually growing a bit faster, a CAGR of 7.8%. A lot of that seems tied to tech advancements, better diagnostics, maybe more telemedicine reaching owners.
Interesting. And Mexico?
Mexico comes in at around USD 119.95 million for 2025 with a projected CGR of 7.5%. So yeah, North America is clearly the leader, but you see solid growth across the board there.
Okay, North America sets the pace. Who's number two?
That would be Europe. Europe holds over 30% of the global market share.
And the numbers for Europe?
The forecast for 2025 is USD 133.13 million, and the growth rate, the CAGR from 2025 to 2033, is expected to be 7.5%. So still a very large market with strong ongoing growth.
Are there particular countries in Europe really driving that?
Yeah, several key players. The UK is substantial, about USD 173.57 million in 2025, and a pretty strong CAGR of 8.3%. France is also big, USD 102.6 million, CGR 6.7%. Germany, with its equestrian history, is quite large, USD 204.56 million, CGR 7.7%. Italy, Russia, Spain, they're all contributing significantly. What's kind of interesting is the variation in those growth rates, right? Suggests different things are happening in each country. Denmark, for instance, maybe a smaller horse population than some, but a surprisingly high market size USD 274.19 billion in 2025, growing at 7.3%. Could reflect a really strong focus on welfare there.
That's quite a varied landscape across Europe. What's pushing the growth overall in the region?
It's a mix, really. You've got a strong commitment to R&D and equine health. Then there's the deep equestrian tradition in many countries, meaning steady investment, plus increased ownership for sport and leisure, and just a growing societal focus on animal welfare, often helped along by government initiatives.
Interesting. Okay, so North America and Europe are the current heavyweights. Let's shift to a region maybe showing even faster growth, Asia Pacific, APAC.
Right, APAC. It currently holds about 23% market share. The size in 2025 is estimated at USD 855.000 million. But here's the kicker. APAC is projected to have the highest intra-GR globally. We're talking a remarkable 11.3% between 2025 and 2033.
Wow, 11.3%. That's really taking off. Which countries are leading that charge in APAC?
China's a huge factor. Market size of USD 359.1 billion in 2025, growing at 10.8%. Japan's next, USD 117.99 million, CAGR 9.8%. South Korea is also significant, USD 102.6 million, CGR 10.4%. But the real standout for growth rate is India. Market size around USD 85.5 million in 2025, but with an incredible CAGR of 13.2%. That's the highest in the whole region.
That is incredible growth for India. What's fueling this acceleration across APAC?
It seems to be several things coming together.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely a growing focus on horse welfare across the region. Better regulatory standards are coming in, more training programs too. You mentioned the Chinese Equestrian Association, for example, working with international groups to raise standards.
Hmm.
That's part of it. And in India, you see horses being used more widely, not just sport, but transport in some areas. That drives a need for better healthcare.
So APAC is definitely one to watch. What about South America? What's the picture there?
South America accounts for just over 5% of the global share. Market size is about USD 135.38 million in 2025. It's also showing strong growth, though a CAGR of 9.2% projected through 2033.
And who are the main players in South America?
Brazil leads the way there, estimated at USD 57.94 million in 2025 with a 9.8% CAGR. Argentina follows, USD 22.74 million, but actually a slightly higher CAGR at 10.1%. Colombia, Peru, Chile, they're smaller but growing markets too.
What's driving growth in South America?
One big factor seems to be, unfortunately, an increase in certain diseases. There have been significant outbreaks of things like Western equine encephalitis, WEE, in places like Argentina. That naturally boosts demand for diagnostics, treatments, vaccines, and also in Brazil particularly, horse racing is becoming more popular, which leads to more investment in keeping those high-value animals healthy and performing well.
Okay, got it. Disease prevalence in sports. So we've covered the Americas, APAC. What about the Middle East?
The Middle East holds around 2% of the market share currently. Market size estimated at USD 142.5 million for 2025. But it's also seeing pretty healthy growth, CAGR projected at 9.8% through 2033.
Which countries stand out there?
The UAE has a fairly notable market, about USD 29.36 million in 2025, growing fast at 10.3%. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they're also developing their equine healthcare sectors. Turkey is also significant.
And the drivers in the Middle East?
A lot of it is tied to the growing focus on horse health as equestrian sports gain prominence. These countries are really investing in and promoting equestrianism. Saudi Arabia hosting the FEI World Cup Finals recently, that kind of high-profile event naturally pulls up the demand for top-tier equine care.
Right. And finally, let's touch on Africa.
Africa currently represents about 1% of the global market. Size is around USD 78.38 million in 2025. The projected growth is a CAGR of 8.8% up to 2033.
Which African nations have the most significant equine healthcare markets?
South Africa is the leader on the continent, about USD 27.59 million in 2025 and growing quite strongly at 9.7%. Nigeria also represents a developing, though smaller market.
What are the key factors driving growth in Africa?
Again, the rising popularity of horse racing and other equestrian sports plays a role. Also, you see some increase in livestock farming involving horses, and just generally a growing awareness about equine health for both economic reasons and animal welfare. This leads to more demand for vet care, vaccines, think African horse sickness, a major concern there, and better nutrition. Plus, gradual improvements in veterinary tech and training networks. Organizations like the South African Veterinary Council are important in ensuring standards and access to meds.
It really is striking how diverse the drivers are, region by region. You've got culture, sports, disease, economics, all playing different roles. Okay, let's zoom back out. Globally, what are the main things pushing this whole market forward?
Well, on a global scale, a big one is the surge in concern over zoonotic diseases, those that can jump from animals to humans. That awareness puts more focus on animal health generally, including horses, as a preventative measure. There's also just a wider societal shift towards greater concern for animal well-being, which translates into more spending on healthcare. And like we've seen regionally, the global expansion of equine sports and just recreational horse activities is a huge driver.
On the flip side, are there major obstacles, things holding the market back?
Yeah, a couple stand out. The sheer cost of equine healthcare can be a real barrier for some owners. It can limit access to advanced treatments or even basic preventative care. And secondly, in some parts of the world, there's still a lack of enough skilled equine veterinarians, which impacts the quality and reach of care.
That makes total sense. Looking forward then, what key trends should we be watching in equine healthcare?
Definitely seeing a big push towards preventative healthcare plans, focusing on catching things early, managing health proactively rather than just reacting to illness. And there's some really exciting stuff happening with protein-based solutions for disease prevention. Like there's been research on a new approach for preventing strangles, that common respiratory infection, using a protein-based method that looks really promising in terms of safety and effectiveness. That kind of targeted biological approach is a big step forward.
That does sound very promising. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Talk about the market segments. How do different product types stack up?
Sure. Looking at product types, drugs, pharmaceuticals held the biggest share in 2025. That's really driven by ongoing R&D, new product launches, like Verbax Equipper, that tablet for equine asthma launched back in 2020. That's a good example of a targeted new drug filling a need.
So drugs are leading. What about other categories? Vaccines? Feed additives?
Vaccines are definitely expected to see strong growth. That ties back to the zoonotic disease concerns and the general push for prevention. Supplemental feed additives are also expected to expand, as more specialized science-backed products come out for nutrition, performance, gut health, etc.
And how do these products actually get to the horses? What are the main distribution channels?
In 2025, veterinary hospitals and clinics were the biggest channel. That makes sense, right? Especially with more specialized care needed for performance horses, therapeutic riding. People go to clinics for the comprehensive services, the diagnostics.
Any other channels growing significantly?
Yeah. Pharmacies and drugstores are projected to grow pretty rapidly as a channel, probably fueled by the rise in equestrian sports and just more owner awareness about common issues. People are maybe more likely now to pick up certain medications or supplements there, things that don't require a full vet visit.
Okay. And what about the types of diseases being treated? How does that market break down?
Well, the biggest slice in 2025 was actually the others category. That covers a lot of the common stuff: colic, lameness, skin issues, the day-to-day problems. However, the segment for equine herpes virus, EHV, is expected to grow significantly. EHV causes respiratory problems, neurological issues. It's a serious concern. Increasing prevalence, plus those highly publicized outbreaks like the one in Valencia in 2021, really drive demand for better diagnostics, treatments, and importantly, biosecurity protocols. Research also shows higher prevalence in certain groups, like pregnant mares, which focuses R&D efforts too.
Yeah, that really highlights how specific disease trends shape the market. Okay, no market discussion is complete without talking about the companies. Who are the big players globally?
It's a competitive space, definitely. You got big global names and more regional specialists.
Yeah.
Things Zoetis, Arthrex, Dechra, Boehringer Ingelheim, Siva, Heska, Merck Animal Health, IDEXX, Covetrus, Elanco, Cargill. Quite a list. They offer everything from drugs and vaccines to diagnostics and nutrition.
Have there been any interesting recent moves or developments from these companies?
Yeah, a few things caught my eye. For instance, that report from the hospital in Rome in July 2024 using equine-assisted therapy for neurology patients shows that interesting link between equine care and human health. Then there was Boehringer Ingelheim's Renew 10 launch back in April 2022, that stem cell therapy for tendon injuries. Very cutting-edge stuff. And just recently, June 2024, Merck Animal Health teaming up with the U.S. Trotting Association on that microchip program for racehorses, monitoring temperature remotely. That's all about proactive health management using tech. So yeah, lots of innovation happening.
It's really great to hear about that kind of progress. Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive today, let's quickly summarize the key takeaways on the global equine healthcare market.
Absolutely. So the big picture: strong growth projected, hitting nearly $7 billion USD by 2033, up from about $3.5 billion in 2025. That's that robust 8.5% CAGR.
Right, and we definitely highlighted the regional differences. North America is the biggest market now, but keep an eye on Asia Pacific for the fastest growth.
Exactly. And the drivers are key zoonotic disease concerns, the boom in equine sports, balanced against challenges like cost and vet availability. And those emerging trends like preventative care and new biotech solutions are really shaping the future.
And we also touched on which product types are leading, the importance of vet clinics, but also growing pharmacy channels, and the major companies driving innovation.
Precisely. It's a complex market, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very dynamic, lots of moving parts depending on where you look and what part of the equine world you're talking about.
So as you've listened today, maybe think about the ripple effects. How might these trends change things for horse owners, for equestrian sports, for vets in your part of the world? And what other innovations or maybe even challenges could pop up as this market keeps growing so fast? Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.